It has been requested that these final boards be placed tightly together with no spacers, and the reason for that is we feed the dogs here and we don't want the dog food going in the cracks and them trying to dig it out. So I've put these scraps between there to make sure the final 4 boards will fit. These last 4 boards, I want to make them 4 continuous boards, not 2 boards butted up against each other so it doesn't look piecemeal. And I have 4 long boards left, so in theory I can make a few mistakes and still correct it, be done. And it will take some doing because there's different angles on each side of the board, so I might just make it a little big and trim it down. You'll notice how warped this post to the gate is, which threw off, made more complicated this angle here. So instead of setting the saw at a true 45, which made it way off, what I did was I put some spacers underneath and then simply traced the line, and then that came out respectively well. It fit fairly tight together, although expansion, contraction, they may slip some. It's good to be good from the start. Trimming that down corrected that problem, or improved it quite a bit. But if you look down here at the other end of the rail, how it's sticking up, and that is because of that post. So I'll probably take a circular saw or maybe just a handsaw and trim that down. Regular handsaw allows me a little more control and able to keep it level. Woo, that took a little more effort than I first anticipated, probably because it's treated wood for one thing, which is pretty hard to work with. I've seen screws break off and nails that just wouldn't go in. But anyway, I think using the handsaw is the best way to go, because with the skill saw you just don't have enough base and it's too easy to take too big of a chunk off. That handrail is now in place, and it was an 8-foot board, so fortunately the scrap is just enough to do the other side, which doesn't have all of the complications the previous one had, thankfully. Okay, now both rails are in place, and in theory all I need to do is finish these steps. But before I do that, let's talk about a touchy subject. Let's talk about screw-ups. Up here we came a little short, and what I could do is cut a little scrap of the same wood and put it in there, but nothing says, hey, I screwed up quite like that does. So what I'm going to do is use a piece of this quarter round that's made of a plastic type of material that can be painted and won't rot, and then it just looks like, hey, you're being fancy. Another screw up is over here. This one board had the 2 complex angles. You'll notice there's sizable chunks missing. So what I'll do is I'll take that board out, use it as one of the stairs, and move on. The rails and the stairs are now done. I gave some extra attention to the stairs before putting the new boards on. I put some extra screws in the old boards to make sure they were solid. And I also put 2 screws on each end of these boards, plus 2 in the middle, since it'll be a high traffic area and we don't want any accidents. Dealing with complex angles, not fun. Just remember, take your time and do it right the second time. So what I did was I measured the longest point from there to there, found that to be 54 inches, so I'll cut that first just to get started. First step is to take a piece of paper the same width as the board, and we're going to trace that with a marker. But before I do that, I'll put some tape on here so we don't mark on the side of our vinyl. With the cardboard in place, we'll just trace that out. Then trace that outline onto the board to cut. There, mark the scrap, and it could be cut out with a jigsaw, but I'm going to use a bandsaw since I have one, and this stuff is kind of hard to cut. It'll go a little faster. First of all, I made a bunch of relief cuts all the way up to the saw line to relieve the band saw blade so I don't have to back up, which could cause it to bind or possibly break. With that end of the board cut, we can just ease it in there and tilt it to see if it looks like it's going to be alright, and it looks good. Then I did the same thing on the other side, just use a little better, stiffer cardboard. I'll transfer that onto the wood, cut it in the bandsaw, and hopefully it will look much better then. There we have both ends fitting very nicely to the contour. Nice clean fit. I changed my mind on the support needed for these deck rails, and also would make these boards line up better. So I'm cutting these 2x4s like so that they have something to screw into and have some additional support, and we will stain or paint them dark brown before installing them. Let's take a quick look at the finished product. We have rails, we have stairs, we have a sad gate that still needs to be worked on. We have upper rail, we have miter joint, we have long rail, we have many pieces of board, we have end pieces, odd shaped pieces, and really odd shaped pieces. We just finished a 14-foot by 26-foot deck, which is fairly large, using 42 8-foot boards and 29 16-foot boards. And here's the top 10 things of lessons learned. First of all, driving screws is very time consuming and requires pressure. Sometimes it takes 5 seconds for the screws to spin before they even start biting into the wood. And at over 1,000 screws, you could be looking at an hour and a half to 2 hours just in time screwing them. Number 9, these screws can be difficult to remove, so just put them just below the surface and be careful before you screw them in. Number 8, this material is deceptively heavy. Don't underestimate the time and energy involved to move it from the front of the house to the back of the house. Number 7, make sure all your saws are completely square. Number 6, replace your hex drill bits often. When this tip gets rounded off, it'll make your life miserable when it strips out screws. Number 5, sometimes these boards can be of different widths. Number 4, use these spacers between boards. Number 3, take your time. Number 2, be safe. Eye and ear protection, and know how to use your tools wisely. Number 1, enjoy yourself and enjoy the journey.